Today, on the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, I encourage you to join me in making a simple pledge. Let's pledge to treat each woman and girl in the same way as we would wish for our grandmothers, or mothers, or sisters, and our daughters to be treated. If we treated each other as we should, as we would wish to be treated by ourselves, I pledge we would not have the major challenge that we have in Jamaica and across the world with violence against women and girls. At this moment, a woman somewhere in our country is being slapped, beaten, pushed, kicked, attacked with a weapon or threatened with a weapon. None of us can be satisfied with this situation. It is time to end the numerous heartless, callous, horrific, and brutal attacks against our women. The violence can end. It must end. And if we work together, we will end it. For too long, too many of us have turned a blind eye to violence against women, particularly domestic violence. We speak of it in hushed tones. We put a stigma on the victims, and we rarely, if ever, mention the perpetrators. We have to change all of that. The government must lead, and we are doing that through a raft of legislation, programs, and initiatives, including the establishment of safe spaces for women who need help to leave violent relationships. But each of us, in our private capacities, must also help. Violence against women isn't a trivial man and woman story. It is a major evil in our world today, from which many women do not survive. We have to take a stand against it. We must take a stand against it. This evening, we continue our push to unmask domestic violence. During the next 20 minutes, we will hear from Beverly Gordon, a courageous woman who has survived domestic violence and has shared her story in the hope that it can help another woman somewhere. I want to thank Beverly for her candor and for helping us to face an issue that too many have tried to sweep under the rug. I offer hope and encouragement to any woman watching who is going through something similar. Your life does not have to be this way. There is a better way. Just reach out to us. We will reach back to you. We will be compassionate and we will help. Remember, you're not alone.
My name is Beverly Gordon.
Do you call yourself a survivor or you use titles like that?
Not really, but I prefer survivor to victim because there are so many women out there who have not survived. And thankfully I did. I don't add labels to it, but I'm thankful to be here and thankful to have survived.
Could you tell us why you wanted to tell us your story?
I think there are stigmas attached to domestic violence. I think women are afraid to come forward. It's almost the same in a sense like rape. There's a stigma to it and a shame that's assigned to it by society. And because of that, people are afraid to come forward. They're afraid to go to the police. They're afraid to tell their family. And usually sometimes when you share your story with people you know, the response is not one of compassion. It's usually one of judgment. And I just want women to know that if you survive this, you can survive it, you can leave. There's hope for you, and you didn't do anything to deserve this. You didn't do anything wrong, you didn't do anything to deserve being attacked. And even if there was an argument, even if the person feels they were wronged in some way, they have no right to put their hands on you. They have no right. After how many years, I still use the word put their hands on you, because when I say beat, it just seems so it reminds me of how difficult the situation is and, you know, what I went through. And it's time, as a society, we start showing compassion to women who endure this kind of abuse.
Could you tell us what happened in your case?
All right, so thankfully my case wasn't one of prolonged beatings. I was in a situation where I was in a relationship with somebody for 4.5 years, and a total of 5 years, but during the first 4.5 years, cheating, lying, it was just emotionally draining. It was emotional abuse, and I was taken advantage of. And to be honest, I take responsibility from that point of view, because I knew from beginning that this person was a serial cheater before I got involved with him. But like so many other people, I told myself, oh, you know, I'm nice, maybe he'll change for me. And it just continued, it just continued, it just continued. It was just one woman after another, one woman after another. And I kept finding these things out, and he would lie about it. And eventually, I don't remember the incident that happened that just propelled me to say no more. I've had enough. I'm done. And I just started living my life. I decided not to have a discussion with him anymore. I've begged him for so many years to just stop and let us build our life together. And about 4.5 years in, I decided I've had enough. I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on with my life. I'm not saying anything to him. I stopped calling to find out where he is. I stopped checking on him. And I started going out with my friends. I started learning to swim. Still can't swim, but I started learning to swim, started learning to play tennis. I started living. And I started seeing somebody. And I came home one night, and it's strange enough, one night I was sick because I have asthma and sinus issues. And I came home one night, I had no voice. I couldn't speak, and he was waiting at my apartment for me. And he asked me where I was coming from. I had a little puppy, and I bent down to, you know, give my puppy the dinner. And while I was coming up, I got a right uppercut. He just gave me one uppercut into my right eye, and I fell on the ground. And he took my bag, disappeared into my house. He still had a key to my apartment, and he disappeared into the house. And he came back, and he kicked me. And he said to me, get up off the floor and go in the house. And I had no voice. I couldn't scream. I couldn't call for help. I was hoarse. My voice had gone. I couldn't call for help. Nothing. I was just lying there on the ground. And he left, and I lied down there for minutes because I was in such shock. I couldn't believe that had happened. And this was somebody who never raised his voice at me. He never hit me before. He was never aggressive with me. So it came as a shock. And I lay there for a few minutes. I couldn't call my neighbors. I couldn't do anything. And eventually I crawled into the house and went into my bag to take out my phone. And I realized the reason he took my bag was because he took my phone out of it, and he left the bag in the house. And I was confused, I was hurt, I was crying, I didn't know what to do. And in the middle of the night, this was probably after 10 o'clock in the night, and I walked up, I was living in Portmore at the time, and I walked up to the phone booth, and I made a call to somebody he knew. And, you know, she was asking him, you know, what's going on? And he was just, you know, casual about it. So I packed his things up because he had stuff at my house, and I packed them up and I put them outside, and I told somebody to tell him that they were there. I went to work the next morning. My face was swollen and black and blue, and I went to work the following morning. The good thing is my glasses had a tint in it, so I was able to hide it for most part and a little makeup. And I told my co-workers what happened. I couldn't find it in my heart to call my brothers and tell them. My brothers raised me. None of them ever, I've never seen any of them abuse anybody. And I couldn't find it in my heart to call them. One of my brothers was a soldier, one was a police, and I just couldn't find it in my heart to say to them that this happened. And I told two of my female co-workers, and, you know, they said, you know, what do you want to do? Do you want to report it to the police? And I said, you know, what is going to come of it if I tell the police? And I was afraid, you know, I was so afraid. And his brother came to me, and his brother was crying and begged me to take him back, asked me, you know, plead with me to take him back. He was calling and apologizing. And in my stupidity and, you know, being in love and, you know, somebody who has meant so much to me for years, I agreed to take him back. And that was a big mistake. He promised me he would never do it again. He said, you know, it was just because he was angry in the moment, and because he found out that I was having conversations with somebody else, and, you know, he was just jealous. And I took him back, and it happened 2 more times after that. I remember one night we were in the house, and he said something to me that I didn't like, and I responded in a way he didn't like, and he just started fisting me in my stomach and in my legs. He didn't hit me in my face that time. I tried to fight back, but just the rage he had, I couldn't defend myself. And he kept threatening, all through this, he kept threatening to kill me. One night we were driving home, and he started swerving across the road, out by that road that leads to Hellshaw. And he kept swerving across the road, and he said, you know, we're dead tonight. The two we're dead because you can't leave me. And I said to him, I'm not going to leave, I'm not going to leave, I'll stay. And he said to me, no, you're only saying that because you don't want me to kill you. You're only saying that because you don't want me to kill you. And he was just swerving across the road, trucks coming, cars coming, and he's swerving on both. And I was just crying and begging him. And eventually he pulled over back to the left-hand side of the road and took me home. I was so afraid. I was so afraid. I didn't know what to do. Honestly, I didn't know what to do. And I kept it quiet. And I remember another time we were driving to the country, we were going to Mandeville, and he had a machete in the van. And we got into an argument, and he hit me from the driver's seat. He took his hand and slapped me in my head, in the side of my head. And I crawled through the driver's and the passenger seat. I went into the back of the van, and I decided to come out. I said, I'm going to jump out, I don't care. And he sped up so I couldn't jump out. And he actually took up the machete and started swinging while he's driving, and he's swinging the machete wildly so I couldn't get to the door. And every time I got to the door and swung the door open, he stepped on the brake so that I would fly forward and so the door would shut back. And he just kept swinging that machete. And the machete did eventually hit me in my hand. It didn't cut me because it was the head of it, the one of the round head machete, and it hit me in my hand, so my hand was bruised for a little bit. And then there was a third time he hit me and in the house and, you know, punched me up. And that night he went to sleep, and I sat there looking at him. And I was just there thinking, imagine, you have cheated on me. You know the worst part of all of this? He added no value to my life. When I look back at it, this man added no value to my life. He wasn't paying any of my bills. He wasn't contributing to my rent. He wasn't buying any groceries. He wasn't doing anything. He more benefited from the relationship than I did. And I said, why? You know, why? I started blaming myself, and I said, why did I allow this to happen to me? Why, you know, have I put up with this for so many years till it got to this point where now I can't leave? And I sat there that night and I cried, and evil said to me, boil some water and throw it in his ears. And the Holy Spirit said, no, you have to leave. No matter what happens, you have to leave. And that night I made up my mind that no matter what happened, I was going to get out. And my mom was living in Bogwalk at the time, and I moved in with mommy, and he kept coming, he wouldn't leave, and I didn't tell my mom. I was so ashamed to tell her. And on top of it, my mom and I had a very toxic relationship, and I knew she would use that. I knew she would use that against me too. And I didn't tell her, but he kept visiting and he wouldn't leave. The first time he hit me, something inside me died. I felt like all my dreams, everything, who I was, my feelings for him, everything just died. And when I made up my mind to leave, I remember he had asked me to do a transaction for him. And when we went to do the transaction, there was proof that he had asked somebody to start the transaction for him, another woman. And at that point, even though he was hitting me, he still had 2 women that I know of in his life that he was seeing outside of me. And when I went to do the transaction for him and I saw, he was there and I saw her name on the paper right there, whatever little straw I was holding on to just died. And right there and then, I just cut him off totally. I said that was it, and I said, you're going to have to kill me.
When you were making up your mind to leave, and you thought of your mother and the relationship, it didn't seem ideal. Would it have helped if at that time we had national shelters?
It would have helped, because I would have rather, to be honest, how it feels when you're in this situation, you prefer if strangers help you than your family. Because number one, as I said, the relationship between me and my mom, and I know she would have used this against me. Number two, the stigma. Even sometimes when I share this story with people and I would say to somebody who is a friend of mine, you know, this has happened, the first thing you'd hear is, no man can't beat me, or why you make that happen to you? There's no compassion. The first response is not compassion. So women need somewhere where they can go, where the first response for them is somebody who is compassionate, somebody who will help them, somebody who can offer them encouragement, somewhere where they can go to get empowerment. Because you find that people are judgmental. The first response is usually one of judgment. Is usually people put themselves in your shoe in a sense of what they think they would do instead of what you went through. And that's where the problem comes in, and that's why there's so much stigma attached to domestic violence. And I think we're at a point now in a society where we need to stop. We need to show compassion. If you have a friend, if you know somebody who is enduring this, show them some compassion. And I know there are some women who put up with this for years. There are some women who don't know how to leave, whether it's for financial reasons, whether it's because of their children, whether because even if those reasons are there, there's still an underlying fear. You fear losing your life. And people just need to realize that they need to be compassionate about it rather than judgmental.
The sky is beautiful. For the people who are in the situation, they feel judged, they feel bad, they feel that it's their fault. How can you help them to understand or to see it differently, that they really didn't do anything to cause this, and that they can take the step, fearful as they are, but there is something that can be done, some assistance that's out there for them?
Well, the first thing they need to know is that there's a support system. And if they can't get it from their family, or if they're afraid to get it from their family, they need to know that there's a support system out there. Outside of that, I would say to women who are going through this, who have gone through this, let me tell you, it's been 20 years, and there are days when I still question myself, and I have to remind myself that this is not my fault. This feeling where you think that you have done something, even if you were rude, even if you said something, even if you burnt the dinner, even if you didn't bathe the child in time, nobody, whether you're a man or a woman, nobody has their right to hit you. Nobody has their right to put their hands on you. It is a matter of control. And whether anybody wants to admit it or not, men who do this and women who do this are cowards. You don't have to do anything for these people to attack you. You don't. You really don't. Because in the first instance when I got hit, by the time he said to me, "Where are you coming from?" I couldn't answer him because I had no voice, but he didn't wait to hear. He didn't wait to hear what I had to say. His thought was, if I can't have you, nobody else can, and you're not going to leave me for somebody else. And it's never, never, ever your fault that somebody else decides to try to assert power over your life. But for women to understand this, they need to have an empowerment support. It can't be just, you can't just go to them and say, oh, you have to leave. Not everybody responds to that. Not everybody can respond to that. They need to understand that there's life outside of this, that there's a better life, that there is more to it than this. I know there are some instances where they've said some women say the reason why they know the man loved them is because they beat them. They have to understand that that is not love.
Any particular reason why you never went to the police even after the last time?
For me, I think there is also a stigma within the police about this kind of situation. When I was living in Ocho-Rios, there was a situation where the woman went to the police and reported it. And they told her, they talked to the man, they talked to her, sent her one way, sent the man another way. And by the time he went around the road, he killed her. He backed her up and killed her. So is it that the police don't know how to help? Is it that they're not trained on how to deal with situations like this? Is there just a stigma that, these are questions we have to ask as a society.
So women generally don't think they will get the help?
No, they don't. And it's just like, sometimes, as I said, I compare it to a rape victim going to the police, the shame and the stigma and the way people look at you. You know, as I said, even when I told my friends and the response, I've had very few people who have said to me, wow, you know, I'm so sorry that happened to you. The usual first response is, no, son of man can't do that to me, or why you sit down and make that happen to you? And you feel like if you go to the police to report this, that's what you're going to get.
Is there a sign, is there a particular man people say, no sir, you must know, said this man I was...
No,
kind of
no. Where I went wrong in this relationship, where I know I should not have gone into this relationship, because there are red flags. There are usually red flags at the beginning of a relationship in terms of the person's personality. So I knew he was a serial cheater before I got involved with him. So I knew I should not have gone into the relationship for that reason. However, in terms of aggression, in terms of being an abuser, never. There was never, ever, ever anything in his personality. And even people who knew him, when they found out afterwards, when I said it to them afterwards, they couldn't believe it. Because he was just always somebody who was jolly and full of jokes and easygoing, never raised his voice at me. 4.5 years, never raised his voice at me until he raised his fist to hit me to the ground. So there's nothing, there are some people, because after that incident, if I'm dating somebody and they are aggressive, or if they're questioning my phone, who are talking to on my phone and they want to see my phone messages and stuff like that, any kind of stalkish kind of behavior, I'm gone.
You said the family intervened, his family?
His brother.
To stay. Did you stay because you thought he would change, or you were just afraid of him?
At first, after that first instant, I stayed because I thought, I really believed that he wouldn't do it again. That was number one. Number two, I loved his family. He's from a big family like me, but his family is so close-knit and they are so loving, caring set of people, and I stayed because of that. And something that some people don't know is that after he hit me that first time, he actually asked me to marry him. And even while we were engaged, he was still cheating, and he hit me 2 times after that and was still threatening my life. So when his brother came to me and asked me, at that point, the fear, that extreme fear had not set in yet. It was more, I was in this relationship for 4.5 years. Maybe it was just a one-off thing. He has never displayed this kind of behavior. So I gave it all kind of excuses. And that's my fault. I take full responsibility for that. I found every excuse in the book to say, you know, let us try it again. And I regret it. Every day I regret it.
For women who are in this situation, they're coming up with some of these things. We change, oh, he's asked me to marry him, we can work it out.
Leave, run, run, run. As Jamaican people say, take your 2 foot in your hand, run, run as far as you can. I've heard that there are some situations where couples have had issues and a fist is thrown or a slap is thrown and they survive it. I didn't experience that. So from my experience, I can tell you, leave. Don't wait for him to give you any excuses. Don't listen to any excuses. If you fear for your life and you have to wait until he's out of the house to pack your things and go, if you have to call the police to help get you out, whatever it is, find a support system and go. Find a support system and go, but don't stay. Don't ever let anybody convince you that this was a one-off thing and they won't do it again. Leave. I had to walk away from my life, because if I had stayed in that situation, let me tell you, one of 2 things would have happened. Either he would have killed me or I would have killed him, because I got to a point where I was so angry, and that thing left me, and it damages your life, because that thing left me so angry for years. I would blow up at people for no reason. I was so angry. And thankfully I had a boss who supported me and sent me to therapy, and it helped. But it left me angry, it left me broke emotionally, it left me broke financially, it left a mental scar. And it will damage your life. And if you don't get the help you need, and if you don't walk away, you might lose your life.
Do you find that in the 20 years, things are a little bit easier for women who want to leave? You find that society has changed its views, or we're still at the same place?
If we have taken a step, it's a baby step. We're shining a light on it now, but it's still sort of in a fishbowl kind of situation. Us as Jamaicans, I think we need to get to a point where, as a neighbor, as a friend, as a confidant, as a co-worker, if you know somebody who is going through this, if you see signs of it, lend a listening ear. If you realize that they are stuck, see what you can do to encourage them. Find a way to encourage and empower them to love themselves, because that's where it's going to begin. They have to realize that they're more valuable than what is happening to them. They're more valuable to other people than they are to this human who is beating them up. Somebody has to teach them that there is value to your life. And that's where we have to start. I survived, and so can you.
We know that there are many women who are living in circumstances that Beverly described. Like her, you too can become a survivor, and we are here to help. I'm Dr. Tamika Peart, and I am the director of the National Shelter Program. The National Shelter is up and running. It is a safe space for women in violent situations and need help to get on with their lives. If you need assistance or someone you know needs help to leave a violent relationship, please call us on the National Helpline for Victims of Gender-Based Violence at 1-876-553-0372. We will help.